The first thing Commander Lex Calder did when he stumbled upon the abandoned alien station was laugh. Not a polite chuckle or an awkward snicker, but a full-throated, doubled-over, tears streaming down his face laugh that bounced off the cramped walls of his ship's cockpit. "You've got to be kidding me," he wheezed, wiping at his eyes. He stared at the colossal structure adrift in the darkness of space. This is what the illustrious Vronyx Empire left behind? It looks like someone tossed a geometry set into a black hole and called the result art. The station was a bizarre sight, a mishmash of geometric shapes haphazardly mashed together. Oversized dodecahedrons sprouted from hexagonal prisms, connected by precarious tubes that looked like unfinished design sketches. It was as if someone tried to make modern art on an interstellar scale and gave up halfway. Lex piloted his modest ship, the Stellar Nomad, closer to the station, his sensors beeping wildly as they tried, and failed, to make sense of the structure's composition. "Computer," Lex said, still chuckling, "run a structural analysis. And please don't sound like you're having an existential crisis." The ship's AI responded with its usual monotone chirp. Primary structure composed of incompatible materials that function purely through inexplicable physics. Estimated likelihood the original engineers understood their own design. 18.4%. That high, huh? Lex quipped as he maneuvered toward what appeared to be a docking bay. A perfect triangle. Because of course the Vronyx wouldn't use a practical shape. Who needed rectangular doors when you could make every ship play a game of geometric limbo? As the docking clamps engaged with a groan of protest, Lex noticed the telltale signs of neglect. Layers of cosmic dust clung to every visible surface, glinting faintly in starlight. Abandoned tools and machinery floated aimlessly, forming a derelict obstacle course. "Beginning docking procedures," the computer announced. "Warning, structural integrity compromised. Detecting alien equivalent of a fix-it-later sticky note on the main reactor." Lex raised an eyebrow. "How can you tell it's a fix-it-later note?" "Analysis of material degradation suggests it's been untouched for approximately 63 years. "Terrific," Lex muttered as the Nomad finally locked into place. "Okay, let's see what kind of mess we've got here." Computer, start a full diagnostic of the station. "Be honest, how bad is it?" The AI paused before delivering its verdict. "Station status. Miraculous that it hasn't collapsed into a black hole of incompetence. Life support is operating at 9% capacity, held together by redundancies that defy logic. The power grid is best described as a spatial equivalent of duct tape. Also, the cafeteria has a working coffee machine." "Wait, really?" Lex's ears perked up. "No, that was a joke. The station's core systems are so flawed they violated at least 3 laws of physics." Lex grinned, the gleam of a challenge lighting his eyes. "Now that is what I call a fixer-upper." After ensuring his ship was secure, or as secure as possible in a station built by people who clearly thought gravity was optional, Lex suited up and ventured inside. His helmet lights illuminated corridors designed by someone with a grudge against practicality. Walls twisted at impossible angles, and doorways led nowhere. It felt like walking through the fever dream of an alien architect. "Computer," Lex said, stepping over what looked like a wrench reimagined as modern art. "Download and translate anything you can from the station's archives. Let's figure out what these overzealous geometry fans were up to." The AI complied, its tone faintly disbelieving. "Warning, translation may be approximate. Whoever programmed this system used binary code as interpretive poetry." Lex wandered deeper into the station, his boots echoing in the eerie silence. Eventually, the computer pieced together a story. Station designation: Research Outpost Theta 7. Primary purpose: development of revolutionary propulsion technology. Secondary purpose: impressing other civilizations with their architectural flair. "How'd that work out for them?" Lex asked, stepping into a cavernous lab filled with failed prototypes or abstract sculptures. Honestly, it was hard to tell which. Their propulsion experiments involved harnessing quantum uncertainty, the computer explained, but they remained deeply uncertain about how quantum mechanics actually functioned. The lead scientist eventually declared, and I quote, The universe is being unreasonably stubborn. They abandoned the station shortly after. Lex snorted, brushing dust off a console. So they quit because the laws of physics wouldn't bend to their will? Classic. He paused, surveying the station's sheer absurdity. But beneath all this nonsense, I see potential. The station, while absurdly over-engineered, was made from top-tier materials. Its core systems were a patchwork of brilliance and recklessness. Standing in the command room, surrounded by flickering displays warning of imminent collapse, Lex made a decision. Computer, compile a list of repairs. We're fixing this place up. Processing request. Suggested first step, redesign everything. Second step, pray. I'm serious, Lex said, already sketching mental blueprints. This station is junk to them, but to me, it's a gold mine. Sure, it'll take months, cost me a fortune, and probably drive me insane, but when else do you get to rebuild an alien station? The AI hesitated before responding. Calculating probability of success. Error. Common sense protocols overridden. Lex grinned. Let's get to work. The next few months were a blur of creativity, chaos, and the occasional existential crisis. Lex tackled the station systems one by one, starting with life support, which the Vronyx had somehow routed through a Mobius strip. Rule number 1, Lex muttered, wielding a plasma torch. All air needs to flow in trackable directions. The power core, which had been designed to run on particles that didn't exist, was retrofitted with a human-engineered fusion reactor. If imaginary physics won't cut it, Lex explained to his computer, we'll settle for boring old fusion. The station's defensive systems proved equally nonsensical. The original shields operated on what Lex could only describe as interpretive mathematics. He replaced them with human tech, but kept one alien feature, a device that transformed incoming missiles into abstract sculptures. Completely useless, he admitted, watching a test projectile turn into a floating metal swan. But it's a great conversation starter. By the time Lex was done, the station was a hybrid marvel of human ingenuity and alien ambition. What had once been a chaotic relic was now a fully operational outpost. Lex stood in the command room, sipping coffee from a human-installed machine. Not bad, he said, surveying his work. Now we just need to name it. Before he could decide, the AI interrupted. Alert. Unidentified Vronyx vessel approaching. They appear to be reclaiming the station. Lex smirked. Oh, now they want it back? Let's see how they feel about human improvements. The challenge wasn't over. It was just getting started. Chapter 2. Alien Expectations, Human Resolve. The first thing Lex Calder noticed about the Vronyx ship was how pristine it looked, sleek silver, and radiating an aura of smug superiority. It approached the station with a deliberate slowness, as though daring Lex to admire its engineering. The second thing he noticed was the hail coming through his communication console. Unregistered human vessel, a clipped, almost disdainful voice announced. The tone alone made Lex want to roll his eyes. This is Commander Valtris of the Vronyx. You are occupying a classified research station belonging to the Vronyx sovereignty. Vacate the premises immediately, or face. Yeah, no, Lex interrupted, leaning casually against the console. First off, classified? This place was abandoned for over 60 years. Second, I just spent months and most of my savings fixing your glorified space junk. Third, he paused for effect, taking a dramatic sip of his coffee. What are you going to do? Repossess it? There was a beat of silence, followed by the sound of muffled conversation on the other end. Lex imagined a group of annoyed aliens scrambling to process this unexpected resistance. This station is sovereign Vronyx property, Valtris repeated, her tone sharper now. You had no authorization to alter its structure or systems. Correction, Lex said, smirking. I didn't alter it. I saved it. If I hadn't stepped in, this place would have collapsed into an actual black hole of bad design. You're welcome, by the way. The silence on the other end stretched longer this time. Lex could almost hear Valtris grinding her sharp, alien teeth. Finally, she snapped, prepare to receive an inspection team. An inspection team? Really? Lex glanced around the station, his chest swelling with pride as he took in the polished hallways, the upgraded systems, the lack of inexplicable geometry defying common sense. Fine by me. But don't trip over the functional life support on your way in. I wouldn't want you suffocating or anything. The channel cut out abruptly. Lex smirked and leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. Computer, prep the station's security systems. I'm betting these Vronyx aren't here to hand out thank you cards. The AI responded, its voice deadpan as usual. Activating security protocols. Note, our best defense system is still the one that turns missiles into abstract art. Good enough for me. A few hours later, Lex stood in the docking bay as the Vronyx inspection team disembarked. There were 3 of them. Commander Valtris, tall and imposing with a face as sharp as her attitude. A second officer who looked more interested in analyzing data than confrontation. And a junior aide struggling to carry a holographic clipboard twice the size of their torso. Valtris surveyed the docking bay with narrowed eyes, her expression somewhere between irritation and disbelief. The bay had been stripped of its original chaos and now gleamed with the polished efficiency of human handiwork. This is unacceptable, Valtris declared, though her tone lacked conviction. You've desecrated our station. Desecrated? Lex gestured around. Lady, this place was one sneeze away from total collapse when I got here. If anything, I've made it better. You're welcome to look around. Just be careful not to break anything. I doubt you've got the tools to fix it. The junior aide gave a muffled snort before quickly pretending to cough. Valtris shot them a glare, so sharp it could have sliced through steel. Proceed with the inspection, she ordered, her voice icy. As the inspection team moved through the station, Lex followed a few paces behind, arms crossed and a smug grin plastered on his face. This ventilation system, Valtris said, pointing to a panel as they passed through a corridor. What did you do to it? Made it work, Lex replied. Your original design routed air through a Mobius strip. You know, a shape with no beginning or end. Great for philosophy, terrible for ventilation. The junior aide tilted their head. That actually makes sense? It does not, Valtris barked, turning to glare at both of them. The Mobius ventilation theory was a groundbreaking concept. Lex gestured toward the vent. And now it's a functioning system that moves air in directions living beings actually need. You're welcome. They moved into the central power chamber next. Valtris visibly winced as she saw the sleek, human-built fusion reactor humming quietly in the center of the room. Where is the quantum uncertainty drive? She demanded, as though accusing Lex of a crime. Lex shrugged. Gone. Scrapped it. Turns out, relying on particles that don't exist is a terrible power source. Who knew? Valtris turned to her second officer, who was furiously tapping on a tablet. This is an egregious violation of what? Lex cut in, spreading his arms. Your sovereignty? Lady, you abandoned this place. For 60 years, it's been a floating death trap. If anything, I just saved your reputation. Go ahead, take the credit. Look at this amazing station we totally didn't leave to rot in the void. You're welcome. Again. The junior aide muttered something that sounded suspiciously like agreement before getting another death glare from Valtris. The inspection concluded in the central command room. Valtris stood before Lex, her expression a storm of conflicting emotions. She hated that the human was right. The station was in far better shape now. But pride was a hard thing to swallow. This facility, she began, her voice tight, is still Vronyx property. We cannot allow it to remain under the control of an unauthorized party. Sure, Lex said with a grin. If you've got the credits to reimburse me for my work. Let's see, months of labor, rare materials, a fusion reactor. He pretended to calculate on his fingers. That comes to about, let's say, 1 billion credits. Pay up, and I'll hand over the keys. Valtris looked like she was about to explode. You can't seriously expect us to. Why not? Lex cut in. You want the station back? Pay for the repairs. Otherwise, it stays with me. Call it salvage rights. The second officer hesitated before speaking. Technically, under interstellar law, he does have a claim. Abandoned structures fall under the jurisdiction of the salvager. Valtris whirled on him. You're supposed to be on my side. Just stating the facts, he mumbled. Valtris turned back to Lex, her fury barely contained. This isn't over, human. Lex smiled, unbothered. Oh, I'm counting on it. As the Vronyx team stormed back to their ship, Lex leaned back in his chair in the command room, watching their vessel retreat on the monitor. Computer, he said, a grin tugging at his lips, log today's entry. First encounter with alien landlords. Negotiations went about as well as expected. Logged, the AI replied dryly. Also noting that your actions may provoke interstellar conflict. Lex said with a shrug, spinning his chair. What's life without a little chaos? The AI hesitated before responding. Calculating probability of future encounters. High likelihood of Vronyx retaliation. Lex cracked his knuckles. Bring it on. Let's show these alien quitters how humans handle a challenge. And with that, he got back to work. The station wasn't perfect yet, but it was his. And he wasn't giving it up without a fight. Chapter 3. A friendly visit. 3 weeks had passed since the Vronyx inspection team had stomped out in frustration. And for Lex Calder, life aboard the station had settled into an oddly satisfying rhythm. Sure, there were still plenty of kinks to work out, like the coffee machine that randomly dispensed neon pink sludge and the lights in the central command room that flickered whenever someone flushed the bathroom. But all in all, the place was starting to feel like home, which of course meant something was bound to go wrong. Lex was in the middle of reconfiguring the station's shield grid, a task that involved balancing human deflector arrays with the Vronyx's abstract art-inspired energy converters, when his computer's deadpan voice interrupted. Unidentified vessel approaching. High energy output detected. Likelihood of hostile intent. 92%. Lex groaned, setting down his plasma wrench. You couldn't just let me have one day without drama. The computer didn't dignify that with a response. Lex strode to the command console, brushing metal dust off his hands as he brought up the external cameras. The approaching ship was sleek and angular, its hull shimmering with an iridescent sheen that screamed expensive alien tech. A quick scan confirmed it was another Vronyx vessel, bigger, nastier, and bristling with enough weaponry to turn his station into space confetti. Great, Lex muttered, plopping into the captain's chair. They brought the big guns this time. Computer, open a channel. The screen blinked, and a familiar face appeared. Commander Valtris, looking even more irritated than the last time he'd seen her. Behind her stood a cadre of equally stern-looking Vronyx officers, their expressions suggesting they were already composing Lex's obituary. Human, Valtris began, her voice cold enough to freeze a star. This is your final warning. Surrender the station immediately, or face the consequences. Lex leaned back in his chair, propping his boots up on the console. Nice to see you too, Valtris. I'd offer you a cup of coffee, but the machine's still broken. So, what's this about, consequences? You guys planning to send me an angry letter? Or are we talking something more explosive? Valtris's eyes narrowed. You are trespassing on Vronyx property. Your unauthorized modifications are an affront to our engineering legacy. Legacy? Lex cut in with a laugh. Lady, your legacy was a death trap held together by hope and duct tape. If anything, I should be charging you rent. One of the officers behind Valtris let out an audible snicker, quickly silencing it when she shot him a glare sharp enough to pierce a bulkhead. This is not a negotiation, Valtris snapped. You have 1 hour to vacate the station. If you do not comply, we will take it by force. The transmission cut off before Lex could retort. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Computer, what's the play here? Can we take them? Analysis suggests a 0.4% chance of successfully defending the station against their weaponry, the AI replied matter-of-factly. However, that percentage increases significantly if you employ unconventional tactics. Lex grinned. Unconventional is my middle name. Let's make this interesting. 30 minutes later, the Vronyx ship had closed to within striking distance. Lex watched the tactical display as their energy cannons powered up, bright red warnings flashing across the screens. All right, computer, he said, cracking his knuckles. Initiate the decoy sequence. The station's external lights flickered ominously, and a low hum began to resonate through the structure. Lex had spent the last 2 weeks rigging up an elaborate network of holographic projectors and energy signatures designed to make the station look far more intimidating than it actually was. To the Vronyx scanners, it now appeared as though the station had suddenly activated a massive, alien-built superweapon, complete with ominous glowing spires and an energy buildup that looked ready to annihilate half the sector. Warning, the AI intoned. Incoming transmission from the Vronyx vessel. Let's hear it. Valtriss's face appeared on the screen again, her confident smirk replaced by a look of genuine concern. What is that? What have you done to the station? Oh, this? Lex gestured vaguely to the holographic superweapon on his screen. Just a little upgrade I threw together. I call it the reality bender. Pretty cool, huh? It's powered by, what did your engineers call it? Quantum uncertainty. Turns out I figured out how to make it work. Crazy, right? Valtriss's composure cracked for a fraction of a second before she recovered. You're bluffing. Am I? Lex leaned in, lowering his voice for dramatic effect. Do you really want to find out? The tension in the room was palpable. The Vronyx officers behind Valtriss were whispering among themselves, their expressions a mix of confusion and unease. One of them leaned in to whisper something to her, and she visibly hesitated. You wouldn't dare activate an untested weapon, she said finally, though her tone lacked conviction. Lex grinned. You're right. I probably wouldn't. But you've got about 30 seconds to make up your mind before the reality bender goes live. Tick-tock. The next few seconds stretched into an eternity. Lex could feel the sweat beading on his forehead, but he kept his expression calm, confident, and just cocky enough to sell the lie. Finally, Valtriss spoke. Stand down. We will withdraw for now. But know this, human, this isn't over. The screen blinked off, and Lex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He watched as the Vronyx ship turned and began retreating, its engines flaring as it disappeared into the void. Computer, he said, leaning back in his chair. Log today's entry. Bluff my way out of certain destruction. Vronyx still sore losers. Logged, the AI replied. Though I must point out that your so-called reality bender is entirely non-functional. Yeah, well, Lex said, grinning. They don't know that. He glanced around the station, his home in all its cobbled-together, alien-human glory. The Vronyx would be back. He was sure of that. But for now, he had time. Time to fortify, to upgrade, and maybe, just maybe, to make the station truly invincible. All right, he muttered, picking up his plasma wrench. Back to work. Let's see what kind of madness we can cook up next. And with that, the human salvager set to work, ready for whatever the universe, or the Vronyx, threw at him next. Chapter 4, The Final Stand. Lex Calder had known it was only a matter of time before the Vronyx returned. After his bluff with the reality bender, he'd worked tirelessly, transforming the station from a patchwork relic into a fortified marvel. The absurd alien design had become a canvas for his creativity. Now, the station gleamed with human ingenuity and alien flair, more functional, more dangerous, and more unpredictable than ever before. When the Vronyx fleet arrived, 3 massive warships and a swarm of smaller fighters, Lex wasn't surprised. What did surprise him was their opening move. No posturing, no demands, just a coordinated assault. Computer, Lex said as the first volley rocked the station. Activate the shields. The deflector arrays sprang to life, shimmering with a mix of human tech and the salvaged remains of the Vronyx's original systems. The station shook, but it held. Shields at 72% and holding, the computer reported. Probability of survival against sustained attack, 4.7%. Lex grinned despite the odds. Plenty of time to make them regret this. For the next hour, the battle raged. Lex's automated defense drones, cobbled together from scavenged Vronyx parts, darted through space, harassing the enemy fighters. The station's hybrid weapons system, a mix of human missile launchers and alien energy cannons, fired in chaotic bursts, forcing the Vronyx to split their forces. But it wasn't enough. The largest of the Vronyx warships, bristling with weapons, closed in. Lex could see it on his tactical display, a hulking mass of destruction intent on ripping him apart. Computer, status on the main power core? Main power reserves at 43%. Suggest immediate retreat or surrender. Lex snorted. Surrender's not my style, and retreats off the table. It's time for Plan Z. The computer paused, then replied with a hint of trepidation. Plan Z has a 91% chance of resulting in your death. Yeah, but it's got a 100% chance of being awesome. Lex sprinted to the engineering bay, the station shuddering with every hit. In the center of the room was his latest and most dangerous creation, the quantum cascade generator. It was based on the Vronyx's original propulsion research, but Lex had modified it into something else entirely. A device capable of generating a controlled spatial anomaly. Controlled, of course, being a relative term. Computer, begin activation sequence. Lex ordered, grabbing a set of tools. Warning, the AI replied. Once the anomaly is triggered, containment failure is likely. Suggest reconsidering. Noted. Now do it. The generator hummed to life, filling the room with an eerie glow. Lex worked quickly, calibrating the system as alarms blared throughout the station. Vronyx flagship is charging its main weapon, the computer announced. Impact in 90 seconds. Lex gritted his teeth. Not if I get them first. Route all remaining power to the cascade generator. The station's lights flickered and dimmed as energy surged into the device. The hum grew louder, reaching a crescendo as the generator's core began to spin faster than should have been physically possible. Cascade anomaly at 97%, the computer reported. Recommend immediate deployment. Lex slammed the final control lever into place. Deploy it now. From the outside, it looked like madness. The station's shields dropped entirely, leaving it exposed to the incoming Vronyx flagship. But before the enemy could fire, a wave of shimmering distortion erupted from the station's core, rippling outward like a stone dropped into a pond. The spatial anomaly struck the flagship first. One moment, it was a hulking predator bearing down on the station. The next, it was gone. Not destroyed, not exploded, just vanished, as though it had been erased from existence. The anomaly expanded, swallowing the smaller Vronyx fighters and warships. Lex watched on the command screen, his heart pounding. He calculated the anomaly's radius down to the millimeter, ensuring it would stop just shy of the station itself. Containment holding, the computer said, sounding almost surprised. Anomaly stabilizing. Lex let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Status of the Vronyx fleet? Non-existent. Lex slumped into his chair, staring at the screen. The space around the station was eerily quiet, save for the occasional piece of debris floating by. The Vronyx were gone, completely and utterly gone. For the first time in weeks, the station was silent. Lex wandered through the corridors, his footsteps echoing against the metal walls. He ended up in the central command room, staring out at the void through the observation window. You did it, the computer said, breaking the silence. Against all odds, you survived? Lex chuckled. Barely. And now I've got a giant hole in space-time to deal with. Indeed. Perhaps next time, you might consider a less apocalyptic solution. Next time, Lex said, I'm taking a vacation. He gazed out at the stars, a sense of calm washing over him. The station was his now. Truly his. It wasn't just a fixer-upper anymore. It was a testament to what one determined human could do when faced with impossible odds. Computer, he said after a long pause, log today's entry. Vronyx evicted. Station secured. Probability of future chaos. 100%. Logged, the AI replied. Congratulations, Captain Calder. Lex grinned. Captain? I like the sound of that. As he sat there, watching the stars, Lex couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He'd taken an abandoned alien station, rebuilt it into something extraordinary, and defended it against overwhelming odds. Whatever came next, he was ready, and for the first time in a long time, Lex Calder felt at home. The end.